Hello everyone and welcome to an incredible game from round 11 of this year's Tata Steel Chess Masters. It just finished and it is Nodirbek, Abdusattorov and Wenjun. And we mentioned in the previous video that as Nodirbek and Gukesh are now in the lead, it's gonna be a battle between the two of them who will win this year's Tata Steel unless, well, someone else gets to say something about that. But yeah, okay, we also said that maybe Gukesh's opponents are a little bit tougher to deal with as he faces three 2700 opponents. But Wenjun has defeated Alireza Firuja in this event, so she is also, someone to take very, very seriously, and she is a world champion. Now, going into this round, Nodirbek, well, if you consider four previous games that he played, he, lost to Yanni Pomnishi, but he defeated the three Dutch horsemen, Max Varmerda, Manish Giri, and Jordan van Forest. So he is in an incredible form, and with the white pieces, well, definitely cannot be taken lightly. Let's check it out. It's an incredible game. The title says it all. It is impossible to calculate. You guys can try. Of course, you are more than welcome to. You'll see what I mean by this. So Nodirbek with the white pieces opens with pawn to e4. Pawn to e5, knight f3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. The Italian game is on the board. We have knight f6, the two knights defense, and now not everyone's favorite, but pawn to d3, the modern bishop's opening, bishop to e7, castles, castles, and now bishop to b3. And here, okay, it's a fairly well-known position. d6, d5, pawn to h6 are known moves, but here we have pawn to a5 by Wenjun, and now pawn to c4. Already a new move by move 7, and it is now as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. And it's one of the things I really like about modern games. I think I started, noticing it even in 2023, because a couple of years back, in top tier events you'd have new game as of move 15, as of move 20, sometimes even as of move 23. But now in modern times you get the new game as of move 5, 7, sometimes even 3. So very, very exciting. And okay, pawn to d6, we have bishop to e3. Knight to d7 going after the c5 square as the bishop is on b3, but also the knight will be very nicely placed on c5. You can't play b4 or d4 to kick it away. Bishop to a4, putting pressure on the knight here, and now knight to b4. Also, if the knight comes to b6 to attack the bishop, then you'll just capture on b6 and weaken the d6 pawn. So knight to b4, and now pawn to a3, kicking away the knight, knight to a6, and now knight to c3. Nicely continuing development, we have pawn to c6, and now Nodirbek retreats with bishop to c2. Knight 8 to c5, now this is a magnificent steed, and now b4 can be played, so pawn to b4, of course. Not a captures, she retreated with the knight to e6, and now queen to d2, knight to f6, and now knight to a4, with the idea of planting something on b6. So a captures on b4, opening up the a file, a captures, and now pawn to b5, forcing white to decide whether Nodirbek will retreat with the knight or go forward to b6. So here we have a capture on b5, c captures on b5, we have c captures on b5, and now knight to b6. This was the first real pause, the moment for Nodirbek. He was deciding between bishop to b6 and knight to b6, but it was a good decision. Bishop to b6 looks aggressive, but after queen to d7, not a lot of ways to push for something. You have to move the knight back, then the rooks get traded off. For example, captures, and then pawn to b5, d5 comes, and Wenjun basically equalizes the game. Rook to a7 looks scary, but after queen to c6, for example, rook captures on e7, queen captures on b6, knight captures on d5, knight captures on d5, and e captures on d5, queen to d6, going after the rook. Rook moves, and she will recapture on d5. One of the lines that, ends up in equal material. So instead, knight to b6 by Nodirbek, and okay, she trades rooks on a1, rook captures, and now you have to be very, very careful here, because there is only one good move for black here, and she doesn't play it, and that move is pawn to d5. It's a move that if you can play it, get rid of your backwards pawn, you should most certainly play it, but it's not easy to play it, because look at this, rook to a8 goes after the bishop, you have to play queen to c7, now okay, your rook is helping out with the defense, knight captures on d5, knight captures, e captures, now knight to d4, And after knight captures on d4 and e captures on d4, bishop captures, there's this very nasty bishop captures on b4, removing the queen from the defense of the bishop on c2. So queen captures on c2, and now threatening some very nasty back rank ideas. Pawn to h4, let's say, you're going to capture on d3, and it's equal material, but the white will always have this d pawn for you to worry about. But all in all, objectively, it is a draw. But yeah, if you can see that, okay, then you play d5. If you don't see it, then you don't play it. So bishop to b7 was played, sort of reinforcing d5 and not allowing rook to a8. But now Nodirbek finds a very, very nice way to continue. Bishop to b3, pawn to d5 now, excellently played, and now rook to a7. And now, what do you play here? The problem here is that queen to b8, as it was possible before, now it's not possible because knight captures on d5, the bishop now guards the rook, so you don't have to worry about that. And after knight captures, bishop captures, and e captures, look at this, your knight is hanging and your bishop is hanging, so the only way to get rid of both threats is to play knight to c7, and then you lose the e5 pawn, and it's just a much better position. You can't capture on d5 because knight to d7 forks the rook and the queen. White is just winning here with the passed d pawn. So that's why she played d captures on e4, which is the only way to continue here. Knight captures on e5, and now queen to c7. Putting pressure on the knight on e5, and there's only one good move for Nodirbek here. Well, there are other moves that sort of keep equality, but there is only one move that really makes it difficult. And I thought about making this pause the video moment, but it would be too difficult because even the one that I have chosen is too difficult. So I'm going to show you this one. It's the one from the thumbnail. Of course, Nodirbek does play the strongest move, knight captures on f7, and she replies with the strongest move, king captures on d7. But it is what follows the strongest move that is the most important and strongest. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the only move that objectively gives Nodirbek advantage while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this move, as even the great Nodirbek was unable to find it. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is d captures on e4. It's a crazy move to play in a position like this, but yeah, it makes sense once I show you why. So let's let's see what are some of the options here. We could capture on e6. What happens if we capture on e6? Let's say king captures, and now we just give a nice check. Queen to a2 with check. Okay, the king escapes to the f5 square, and now okay, d captures on e4. You can play king to g6, and now let's say queen to e6. You will play queen to c2. Very annoying, threatening checkmate. And after white plays something like pawn to h3, you will give queen to d1 check, and after king h2, queen to d6 check, forces a queen trade, and after captures and captures, yeah, it's a nice draw. You have to decide what you're gonna give. So you can play e5, sort of to block the bishop with pawn to f4. So now bishop captures on e5 and pawn to f4. Now bishop and bishop are hanging. So you have to decide which one you'd rather part with. So bishop captures, let's say bishop to e4, and it's an equal game if you can calculate all of that. So the problem is, after this bishop captures on e6, black just escapes. So that's why the strongest move after king captures on f7 is not bishop captures on e6, it's rather d captures on e4. One of the things that it does, unlike in the previous line, bishop captures, king captures, and queen to a2 check, the king will not have access to the f5 square because there's a pawn on e4. And now the problem is, if you play knight captures on e4, it's insufficient because after queen d3, notice that the knight isn't really doing all that much because you can capture, and if bishop captures, rook captures queen, and the knight cannot recapture as it's pinned. So rook to d8 will be played, attacking the white queen. Now you play knight d5, attack the black queen, and after knight to f6, and after knight to f6, if you can still follow what's happening here, knight captures on c7, rook captures on d3, and now, only now, bishop captures on e6 with check, with the knight guarding the bishop, so the bishop cannot be captured. And after the king moves, now you play king to f1. Of course, you do not want to get checkmated. And after bishop to e4, you will play king to e2. And now only after rook to d8, there will, a lot of moves are possible, but bishop to c5 is the one that will win you the game. For example, bishop captures on c5, b captures, and you're only up a pawn, but the passed c pawn will be sufficient for you to win the game. For example, rook to b8, you will play pawn to f3, kick away the bishop, and now let's say rook to b7, you trade off the rooks, captures, you go king to d3, and this position, this endgame is winning for white. So that's the key idea behind this d captures on e4 move. But of course, knight doesn't have to capture on e4. Strongest would be to play rook to d8. And even with this precise d captures on e4, rook to d8 still sort of holds. You can play knight to d5, and now after queen to c6, you will play queen to e2. And okay, now the king can escape, for example, king to e8, knight captures on f6, bishop captures, and now bishop captures on e6, removing the defender of the bishop on b7. Queen captures on e6, rook captures on b7, and now queen captures on e4. And you get this position where it's very, very hard to deal with. For example, queen to b1 will be very annoying. You have also the rook on b7 is hanging. You have to play rook to c7 to be able to play rook back to c1 if queen to b1 lands. And white is up a pawn. White will be pushing for the win here, but it is still possible to play. However, Nodirbek does not go for that. He goes for the immediate queen to a2. And what's different about this queen to a2 move is that you can defend the position now. And if anything, it's even better for black, but only if she finds the correct continuation, which she doesn't. Here, the correct idea is a rook to d8. Kind of weird to play because, your knight on e6 is hanging, but you have to allow it. And after king to f8, black is just better. Whatever you play, let's say bishop to d5, you put pressure on b7, knight captures on d5, knight captures, attacks the queen here, just the bishop captures on d5. You open up an attack on the rook because the queen is also hanging, and after queen captures on d5, you will play rook captures on d5, rook captures on c7, and e captures on d3, and it is definitely black who is better here with the so far advanced pass pawn on d3. But okay, after queen to a2, she doesn't spot the idea. She plays queen to c6, just unpinning, and now Nodirbek plays rook captures on b7. Of course, removing the defender of the e6 square. Queen captures on b7, and now bishop captures on e6. We have king to e8, and now d captures on e4, the only winning move. And now you can still sort of maybe try to defend this, but it's very hard. For example, bishop to d8, knight to d5, and now after queen to c6, not much can be played here. Pawn to e5 will force the knight back, knight to d7. Now you create some breathing room for your king, and that's pretty much it. Knight captures on e5 can be played, but still just bishop to c5, and it's similar to what happened in the actual game. But instead, after d captures on e4, she played queen captures on e4. Instead of bishop to d8, she played queen captures on e4, and now comes a beautiful move by Nodirbek, and that is knight to d5. Notice that the bishop is covering d7 and f7 here, and queen to a8 check would be deadly if the queen on e4 was not covering the a8 square. But here, Wenjun missed that knight to d5 was possible, and now it's just curtains. So the problem is, of course, if you capture knight captures on d5, queen to a8 with check, and now after the bishop blocks, there's queen to c6 with check. King to e7 only move. Now bishop to g5 with check, knight to f6 blocking, and queen to d7 will be checkmate as the knight on f6 is pinned. So she tries bishop to d8 now, the move that we've discussed in the previous line, and here Nodirbek in its fullest cold blood plays pawn to h3. He just creates some breathing room for his king, as there is nothing more to be done here for Wenjun. She spent a lot of time on this move. They even were both on 38 minutes when h3 was played, but she burned maybe 20-25 minutes trying to figure out a way out of this, but there is just no way out of this. It seems like you can take the bishop on e6, but you can't. If you take the bishop, then knight to c7 with a fork, but also queen captures on e6 is coming with the knight also attacking. So, queen captures here with check, king to d8, and okay, you do have rook and knight for a queen, but with the open board, the b pawn will fall. there's no counterplay here. And another thing, after h3, if you go knight captures on d5, also looks maybe possible. Then bishop captures on d5, and after queen to e5, just bishop to c6 with check. The black king is just getting destroyed here. Queen is covering the f7 square. You have to go to e7 and then bishop to c5 with check. King to f6, you will capture the f8 rook, and okay, you can give a few checks here, king h2, queen to e5 with check, but after g3 you are just down too much material and cannot continue the game. So instead, after h3, she spent almost all of her time, she played rook to f7, sort of hoping that bishop captures on f7 will be played, even though that's still winning for Nodirbek. But now Nodirbek just goes queen to a6, the strongest move recommended by the engine. He's not joking around. He's going queen to c6, queen to c6 check, followed by bishop to c5, and that's it. She played knight captures on d5 here, because if you try running away, a queen to d6 check still works, because the bishop here is attacked, and if you block with bishop to e7, then it's not a problem. Bishop to e7, just knight captures on e7, and after rook captures, bishop to c5 goes after the rook here, and there is no way, of course, to defend this. You could go knight to g8, but then queen to d8 or queen to b8 will be checkmate, since the rook is pinned. So instead, after this queen to d6 check, you could go block with the you can't block with the bishop, but you could maybe try king back to e8, but it's still not gonna work. Whatever you play here, it's just too much. For example, bishop to c5 right away, and even this. I mean, just look at this. No, there's no move here. You could give one check, but it doesn't really do anything, so you'd probably have to go for knight captures on d5. And now look at this, bishop to d7 with check. Crushing. You have to capture, no other move. Now queen to f8 will be checkmate. So instead, after queen to a6, knight captures on d5 was played, as you cannot run away with the king. And now comes queen to c6 with check. King to f8, and now queen to d6 with check. Getting basically the same position. King to e8. Now comes bishop captures on d5, attacking the queen. Queen to e7 was played, hoping for, of course, queen captures on e7, but just queen to c6 with check. And it was in this position on move 34 that Wenjun resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So it's really, I mean. What a game, what a streak by Nodirbek. Out of the last 5 games, he just takes 4 wins, only loses 1 to Yanni Pomnishi. And the problem is, if you go, of course, king to f8, then bishop to c5, and, well, the rest is self-explanatory. And if you try to block with the queen, then just bishop captures on f7 with check. If you capture, then the queen falls. If king to e7, then again, a nice bishop to c5 with check. Now you have to capture, the queen falls, and now a few more moves. And you will get checkmated. It doesn't really matter what you play. Let's say queen e8 check, king to g5, bishop to e3 check, king to h4, and queen to h5 will be checkmate, or any series of moves that you prefer. Yeah, incredible stuff by Nodirbek. Incredible watching him calculate all of this, even though in that line where you're sort of objectively you're supposed to go the other way. Nodirbek, I mean, it's just impossible to calculate for anyone, and I mean, he even confused the world champion here into just going back with the king after this knight captures, and then this wonderful bishop captures. There's just nothing to be done here. Rook to d8 was supposed to be played, but she missed it. She played queen to c6, and after that it is all Nodirbek. So he did give her a chance, if she was maybe able to calculate her way out of this chaos. But I mean, no one could do this. It would be it's hard to say if Nodirbek was on the receiving end of this game, if he would be able to calculate this with black. Just incredible stuff here. And for such a game, it's been a while since I've awarded it, but for such a game, I am awarding Nodirbek with the Morphy head. It's such an incredible game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope I didn't make your head spin, because my head is definitely spinning. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm not gonna spoil any results from the other games, because well, anything could still happen in the other games, and we are definitely keeping a close eye on the game Gukesh versus Alireza Firuja. And since Nodirbek and Gukesh went into this round as the leaders, it is a very important game to decide the leadership of the tournament. So stay tuned, as I will look into that as well. So yeah, I would like to thank Christopher and Ruth Burkett, Usman Afzal Minas, Juega Yedres Teresa, BulletChessThriller.com, and Lana is the best wife in the world for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions, but mostly covering the Tata Steel. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.